A rare and dangerous windstorm is about to slam into the west this Saturday, right on top of 87 wildfires already burning. Out in the deserts, the heat is climbing toward 125 degrees, drying everything out like kindling for that wind. Red flag warnings are flying across 4 states tonight, which is the National Weather Service screaming that conditions are primed to explode. And okay, California, the state that stayed quiet all summer, just caught its first big spark near the coast in recent days. Y'all, this is a big-time impactful setup, and the next 72 hours could decide how brutal this fire season really gets. By Sunday morning, the fire map across the western United States could look completely different, and honestly, not in a good way. So let's get right into it region by region and walk through exactly where the danger is heading tonight. All right, we start out west in California, and that eerie calm we kept talking about is finally starting to break. Up in Sonoma County, the brand new Woodside fire flared up near Highway 1 in Salt Point State Park along the coast. That fire has already pushed past 140 acres, closing a stretch of Highway 1 and fouling the air across Marin. Strong winds are shoving it through heavy timber near Timber Cove and Jenner, and crews are fighting hard to pin it down. Fire officials had warned for days that a hot, dry pattern would prime the coast, and the Woodside fire proved them right. By this evening, smoke from that coastal fire could drift inland along Highway 1, so air quality may slip across Sonoma and Marin. Air quality advisories are in effect across parts of Sonoma and Marin counties, so folks with breathing trouble should keep windows shut tonight. Emergency officials are urging everyone near the coast to know their evacuation zone and keep their phone alerts turned on as this fire grows. Here's the interesting thing, though. This is exactly the kind of coastal flare-up fire chiefs warned us was coming with the heat. Now we move north into the Pacific Northwest, and my goodness, this is the beating heart of the whole national emergency. Along the Interstate 5 corridor, thick smoke has been cutting visibility and hammering air quality from Oregon up into Washington. Oregon and Washington are carrying the country right now, with 43 uncontained large fires and 20 incident management teams committed. Up in north-central Washington, the Sinlahekin fire jumped its containment lines this afternoon as winds and temperatures both shot up fast. Air tankers and helicopters spent the afternoon dropping retardant and water on the Sinlahekin fire, trying to reinforce the dozer lines before dark. Crews had to drop their fire lines and switch straight to protecting homes as the flames ran hard toward Douglas Mountain. Even with all that air support, the fire spotted right across the lines, which shows you just how extreme conditions have gotten. Spot fires are now leaping ahead of the main fire toward Cecile Creek, and evacuation levels were raised again this evening. Fire crews warn that Loomis and the little communities around Blue Lake could be next if that Sinlahekin run keeps pushing north. Over on the Colville Reservation, the Maudrite fire made an aggressive run north and forced a go-now order on the town of Inchelium. Officials told everyone to flee along the Inchelium Highway toward Kettle Falls and warned them flat out not to use the ferry. And listen to this number, the Kaiser Canyon fire has now burned nearly 130,000 acres in northern Washington. That makes it one of the largest wildfires in the modern history of Washington state, and it all started from a single lightning strike. Kaiser Canyon has been burning since the July 16th lightning strike, and evacuation orders there are still very much in effect tonight. Down at the Redmond Tanker Base in Oregon, one of the air tankers dropping retardant flew all the way in from Australia. That is a Boeing 737 from the New South Wales Rural Fire Service, and it tells you how thin our own crews are stretched. Overhead, the country has even brought in military C-130 air tankers from the Air Force Reserve and the National Guard to help out. You might wonder if we are simply running out of firefighters, and the honest answer is no, but the crews we have are spread thin. Behind every one of these fires is a whole network of dispatchers, planners, and weather specialists working around the clock to keep people safe. Dropping down into the Great Basin, Nevada is battling the New Pass fire about 30 miles northwest of Austin in the high desert. That fire is throwing extreme behavior through the dry pinyon pine and juniper, torching trees and spotting as gusty afternoon winds push it around. Crews on the New Pass fire are burning out unburned brush ahead of the flames, a careful tactic to steal the fire's own fuel. New Pass is handing off to a fresh Nevada team today, but hot, dry weather and poor overnight recovery run right through the weekend. Over in Utah, the Widemouth 2 fire south of Fillmore is burning erratically in the heat with humidity bottoming out fast. There will be a community meeting in Kanosh tonight so neighbors can hear straight from fire managers about what happens next. And here's your quirky detail for the night. A hobby drone flew into that fire zone and forced the firefighting aircraft to pull back. Think about that. One careless drone operator delayed the entire air attack while homes near Kanosh sat in the path of the flames. Swinging into the Rockies, the Rio Blanco fire in Colorado forced a second round of mandatory evacuations south of Pagosa Springs. That fire grew past 700 acres and at one point burned within about 50 yards of homes off County Road 335. Evacuees near Pagosa Springs are heading to the high school, and even large animals are being sheltered at the extension building on Highway 84. And over in southern Colorado, the huge fire that destroyed so many homes in recent weeks is still burning and only partly contained. Scattered afternoon thunderstorms could bring a little rain to the Front Range, but they can just as easily spark brand new fires. Way up in Minnesota, fires like Bear Trap, Thumb, and Sioux keep smoldering and threatening cabins across the Boundary Waters wilderness. In that Boundary Waters canoe country, normally a quiet summer paradise, several fires are still burning deep in the remote backcountry. And down in South Florida, hot and bone-dry conditions are keeping the fire threat significant even in the middle of hurricane season. One thing tying all these western fires together is the smoke, which has been fouling the air for millions of people downwind. Y'all, that is fires burning in every corner of the West, and the year-to-date numbers tell the same story loud and clear. So far this year, over 44,000 fires have burned more than 4.8 million acres across the United States. That is running well above the 10-year average for both the number of fires and the total acres scorched nationwide. Okay, so what is coming behind all of this over the next day or two, and does it help the crews or hurt them? Unfortunately, it hurts because the desert Southwest is about to turn into a furnace that primes fuels for hundreds of miles around. In Phoenix and the low deserts, look for highs between 110 and 120 with a few desert spots even hotter than that. Sacramento and interior California climb past 105, while Boise and the Great Basin bake right around the century mark. Los Angeles and the coast stay a bit cooler, but push inland toward the valleys and readings jump well past 100 degrees. Dallas and the Southern Plains stay brutally hot near 105, keeping fire danger elevated from Texas into western Oklahoma. Seattle actually stays milder in the upper 80s to mid-90s, but that is still 5 to 15 degrees above normal for them. Relative humidity is crashing into the 3 to 15% range across interior California, the Great Basin, and the western slopes. Overnight humidity recovery is poor too, so the fuels never cool off and never really get the chance to soak up any moisture. Out in the Great Basin and northern Rockies, isolated dry thunderstorms could toss lightning into these tinder-dry fuels and start even more fires. Dry lightning is one of a firefighter's worst nightmares because a single bolt with no rain can ignite a fire miles from anywhere. With highs pushing past 110 in the deserts, this is also a serious heat health situation, not just a fire story. If you're older or you have harder breathing issues, please stay indoors during the afternoon and drink more water than feels necessary. Check on elderly neighbors and never leave a person or a pet in a parked car because the inside can turn deadly in minutes. Bone-dry fuels plus triple-digit heat is the loaded gun, and now we need to talk about the trigger that pulls it all together. So the setup is heat, drought-dry fuels, and dry lightning all at once, and now the wind is about to be thrown on top. But here's where it gets interesting because a single weather system is about to tie this whole western fire story together. All that heat and dryness is just the stage, and the main act is a powerful windstorm aiming straight at the northwest. So let's talk about that big event, because this is the piece that has fire managers genuinely worried heading into the weekend. Forecasters at the National Weather Service are already flagging Saturday as a dangerous to extremely dangerous fire weather day across the interior northwest. Now, I want to be honest with you, because the exact timing and strength of these wind events can still shift a little. Yesterday's model runs nudged the strongest gusts around, so we are watching each new run closely instead of locking anything in. Let's take a look at this frame by frame, starting with what the American model, the GFS, is showing for Saturday. That GFS run drives a strong upper-level trough into the northwest, and the pressure difference behind it cranks up the surface winds. Upper-level trough, that's a dip in the jet stream that lets colder, punchier air dive south and squeeze the pressure lines together. When those pressure lines bunch up, the wind accelerates, and that is exactly what spreads a wildfire into a running wall of flame. What has forecasters especially concerned is that the European model, the Euro, is painting a very similar windstorm for that same day. Both the American and European models now agree on the broad picture, and when the big models line up, forecasters pay very close attention. One open question is the exact strength and timing, whether the worst gusts hit Saturday afternoon or hold off until Saturday night. Forecasters expect widespread gusts of 35 to 50 miles per hour, with higher terrain seeing bursts well over 50. Some local maps are even hinting at gusts approaching 70 miles per hour, which over dry fuels is an absolute nightmare scenario. Those strongest winds look to arrive Saturday afternoon and roar into Sunday across the northern Rockies and the Great Basin. Watch the Cascade Gaps especially, where terrain funnels the wind and can turn a breezy afternoon into a firestorm in minutes. Let's talk about what these gusts actually do to a wildfire, because that number alone does not tell the whole story. Strong wind pushes more oxygen into the flames, bends them forward, and can turn a slow, creeping fire into a fast wall in minutes. Wind also carries burning embers far ahead of the main fire, a process called spotting, which starts new fires past every containment line. That is why one windy afternoon can erase weeks of progress and why fire managers are watching Saturday with such real concern. Okay, so let's walk through the scenarios, from the best case to the worst case, the way I always like to do it. In the best case, the wind arrives weaker and later, crews hold their lines, and the fires grow only slowly through the weekend. In the middle case, the gusts hit as advertised, several fires make big runs, and a handful of new starts pop up from the wind. In the worst case, that wind rakes across every active fire at once, and we wake up Sunday to a whole new map out west. A single wind-driven run can send embers a mile or more ahead of the fire, starting fresh blazes far beyond the current lines. Firefighters may actually pull crews back from the most dangerous lines on Saturday, because no acre of brush is worth a human life. And remember, this is landing on fuels already baked by a heat wave, which is precisely why the alerts are worded so strongly. Here's the interesting thing: one bad wind day on top of this, many fires can undo weeks of hard-won containment in hours. Now zoom out to days 3 through 5, because that same pattern keeps the west hot, dry, and unsettled well into next week. Behind the wind, drier air floods most of Arizona, while thunderstorms with rain focus from the Front Range into eastern New Mexico. That means even the areas catching a brief break are looking at more heat and more fire weather danger just down the road. Farther east, heavy thunderstorms are possible across the Midwest, the Ozarks, and the lower Mississippi Valley over the next few days. So the country splits into two stories: soaking storms in the middle and a dangerous heat and wind machine running across the west. And keep in mind, even though July is ending, August has historically been one of the worst months for big western fires. If that Saturday wind threat holds together the way the models are showing, this becomes one of the biggest fire days of the year. And if it does, you have my word that I will be right back here with daily updates as the details come into focus. All right, y'all, let's bring it home, because this is a fast-moving and developing situation stretching from coast to coast tonight. We have 87 large fires burning, deserts pushing 125 degrees, and a dangerous windstorm bearing down for Saturday. Any one of those alone would be a story, but stacked together, they make this one of the most critical setups all summer. This is exactly the kind of action-packed forecast where the whole picture can change dramatically between one evening and the next. Before you go, a quick word on prevention, because a lot of these fires can still be started by everyday accidents. Check your local fire restrictions before you head out, use caution with any equipment, and make sure trailer chains are not dragging and sparking. So if this Saturday wind event keeps trending the way it is, I will have daily updates for you right up through Sunday. Do me a favor and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn your notifications on so you never miss an update. If you live anywhere out west, keep a go bag by the door, know your evacuation zone, and never wait for a second warning. Watch the wind, respect every fire closure, and take any go-now order seriously the very moment that it comes down to you. That is going to do it for tonight's National Fire Briefing, and I truly appreciate every one of you tuning in. I'll see you in the next one, and as always, stay safe out there.